Hey, welcome back, fourth graders. It is Monday, March 30th, 2020. We're looking at today's lesson in your math journal. This is lesson 7-5, and today we're working on multiplying mixed numbers by whole numbers. And I'm going to show you two different ways to do this. We're going to work through problem 1 together, and then we might look at problem 2 if we have time. So taking a look at problem 1, it says that each member of the flute section of the Briar Woods Elementary School band practiced for 2 3/5 hours last week. There are 5 flute players, What is the total number of hours they practiced? So our number model with unknown, we've done this before, is just taking the 2 3/5 and we're going to multiply that by 5. And we can put that as, you can put that as a 5, like that if you wanted, just in the number model. But like we did last week a whole bunch, if you want to put that as 5 over 1, that's alright as well. And then the unknown, we want to know the number of hours, so you could put H. Remember, your unknown can be any letter you want, it just needs to be a letter. A lot of times we want to pick a letter that corresponds to the label. So, one way to solve this is to take this mixed number and put it back into an improper fraction. In the lessons before, I've said to you, if you have an improper fraction at the end for your answer, put it back into a mixed number. But this is kind of going the opposite way. So I'm going to teach you, we've done this before, but I'm going to reteach you how to change this back into an improper fraction. Your denominator is going to be the same. It's going to stay fifths. And what you need to do is you need to take the whole number, which in this case is 2, and multiply it by the denominator. So times this, and then add your numerator. So the process looks like this. You can follow along. If you need to rewind and rewatch to get the hang of it, that's okay. But we go 2 times 5, and 2 times 5 is 10. Then we take that number and we add the numerator. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 3 is 13/5. And that's how you get this back to being an improper fraction. Now the nice thing about this, you do have to do some work here. You got to multiply and add. I just kind of tell kids you start here and you got to just remember it's multiply, then add. It kind of goes around, makes kind of a semicircle, if you will, or 2/3 of a circle. The bonus to this now is you can just take that and multiply. The downfall to it is that you got to re-put it as a improper fraction. But the bonus is now when you multiply across, you're only doing one multiplication problem. So 5 times 1, that's pretty easy. We know that's going to be 5. And when you do 13 times 5, probably the easiest way to do that is to go 5 times 10, 5 times 3, and then add that together. So what I would do right now is I'd pause the video, solve 13 times 5, 5 times 10, 5 times 3, add them together, then hit play again once you have your numerator written in. So here's how you would do that, since you should be back by now. 5 times 10 is 50, 5 times 3 is 15. Now, sometimes we have the tendency to want to do this in our head. It really does help to write them down. Then you don't have to remember those numbers. 0 plus 5 is 5, and 5 plus 1 is 6. But we know it's not a 5 and a 1, it's a 50 and a 10, which makes 60. So this equals 65/5. Now again, you wouldn't tell somebody that you practiced 65/5 hours. So to finish this, we have to put it back, we have to divide. And that's 65 divided by 5. The bonus here, though, is that we know it's going to work out. We shouldn't have any remainder because this ends in a 5 and we're counting by 5s. So I know that we can do 10 5s, because what we're thinking here is we're trying to think, what can we multiply times 5 to get us close without going over? I'm going to do 10 because that's really easy. 5 times 10 is 50. Multiply your divisor and your partial quotient to get what you're going to subtract. We're taking away 50. 5 minus 0 is 5. And 6 minus 5 is 1. Alright, so now you can finish this up. What you should be thinking is, what times 5 is 15? That number is going to go out here. You're going to multiply these two together to get your inside. So go ahead and pause, finish the division problem, and try and figure out what your answer would be. So my thought here is I can go 5 times 3 is 15, and subtract, and I get 0. There's your answer, 13, and you have no remainder, so you don't have to write that up there. So our answer for this should have been 13 hours. This is probably the way that I prefer to do it, but I am going to show you the second way as well. And I know that you have a second way. I'm going to just erase this stuff real quick. I know that you have a second way down here, or another way, but I'm going to leave it like this for right now so that you can still see the number model with an unknown. I'm just going to do it again right here, but you should be doing this in the area where it says another way. So on this one, we have 2 3/5 times 5. And we're going to need to write two different equations here. The first one is to just take the whole number and multiply it times 5. So 2 times 5 equals. Before we solve that, though, we also have to set it up with a fraction. So we're also going to solve 3/5 times 5. But instead of just writing 5 this time, we're going to go 5 over 1, because we know that when we're multiplying fractions, it's just a little bit easier to put that over 1. So now we need to solve both of these. 2 times 5 is 10. And now we solve this. So you can go ahead and solve that on your own if you want to hit pause, and then hit play when you're ready to move on, and you have your fraction. 3 times 5 is 15, and 5 times 1 is 5. Now, whereas in the last one everything was together, here you've got a whole number and an improper fraction. We still have to do the dividing, just like we did last time, although it's an easier problem. So again, I'm trying to point out the pluses and the minuses to doing, or the pros and cons of doing it both ways. I still have to do my division because I need to know what this equals as a whole number. So we're going to reduce. We already did 15 divided by 5 in the last one. That was the bottom half of your problem. How many 5s go into 15? 3. 5 times 3 is 15, and we subtract. So therefore, 15/5 is 3. Okay. So, in here, the key to this one is taking the whole number times the whole number and the fraction times the whole number. But at the end, we end up with two whole numbers. And we need to combine those. That's how we get our 13. 2 wholes times 5 was 10. 3/5 times 5 was 15/3 or 3. So altogether that equals 13. So there are pluses and minuses to both of these ways. And if we were here at school, we would discuss those in great detail. I'm just trying to mention those two. So here we know that we have 13 hours. Then they ask you this follow-up question, how many minutes is that? Well, to do that, it would just be 13 times 60. And rather than do 60 times 13, here's the strategy that I would use. I would just put my 0 down there, and instead of doing 60 times 13, I'd do 6 times 13. So 6 times 10 is 60. 6 times 3 is 18, and I add those together, 0 and 8. 6 and 1 is 7. It would be 780 minutes. So let's take a look at the second problem on that page. And that's not what I wanted. Don't think. No, not what I wanted at all. We're going to go back to this one. My fault, 4th graders. So now we're looking at these two. And I'm going to work through each of them the ways that I showed you. So this has got this, on this one we're going to put that back into an improper fraction. So the first thing we need to do is turn, I'm going to make them a little bit bigger just for this section so that you can see them a little bit better. We got to turn 3 2/10 back into an improper fraction. So first let's write our 3 over 1 times, let's figure out what our improper fraction is going to be. We take the whole number times, oh, first off we know our denominator is going to be a 10 because this is a 10. Then we take our whole number times denominator. 3 times 10. That's 30. And then add your numerator. 3 times 10 is 30, plus 2 is 32. So this is the problem now we're solving. 3 times 32 to get you your numerator, and 1 times 10 to get you your denominator. Obviously 1 times 10 is 10. I want you to figure out what 3 times 32 is. I would do 3 times 30, 3 times 2, and then add them together. Don't be afraid to write those off to the side. Go ahead and solve that. 3 times 30 is 90, and 3 times 2 is 6. So 3 times 32 then is 0 and 6 is 6. 9 plus 0 is 9, so we have 96/10. Now, hypothetically, because this doesn't have a label, you could leave it as 96/10. But I do want us to practice making this back into a mixed number. So we're going to go 96 divided by 10. And you're thinking, how many 10s can go into 96 without going over? This one's really easy. Just count by 10s and you would figure out that 9 times 10 is 90 and subtract. 6 minus 0 is 6, 9 minus 9 is 0. When your remainder is smaller than your divisor, you are done. So our answer here would be 9, numerator 6, denominator 10. So we should get 9 and 6/10. So now, over on this other one, we are going to do it the other way. And on this one, then you have to write this as two problems. So we're going to write it as 2 times 7, because we're doing whole number times whole number. We also need to do whole number times the fraction. So that would be 2 over 1 times 7 over 10. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to hit pause and solve both of these. 2 times 7 and then 2 times 7/10. When you have the answers, hit play and we'll go over them. 2 times 7 is 14. We already know that. Here's another one. 2 times 7 is 14. And that's going to be over 10. But at the end of this, we need to be able to add two whole numbers. So we've got a whole number here. We need to reduce this one. So somewhere on your sheet, you need to find room to do, or on a piece of scratch paper, 14 divided by 10. Okay, pretty simple problem. How many 10s can go into 14? Go ahead and solve this division problem. When you're ready, hit play. 1 times 10 is 10, and we subtract. 14 minus 10 is 4. Okay, when the remainder is smaller than the divisor, you are done. 1 is your whole number, 4 is your numerator, and 10 is your denominator. 1 and 4/10. This equals 1 and 4/10. To finish this problem, you need to take your 14 and add 1 and 4/10. 14 plus 1 is 15, and then you have your 4/10 left over. I went through this really quick today. This is a real substantial lesson. I know there's a lot to it. Look for some review to come on this in upcoming lessons. Your assignment for today is to complete Math Boxes page 242. We're going to take a look at that real quick, and then I will have a video recorded shortly and posted tomorrow morning for you to look at. So the first two are just multiplication problems. 2 times 9,000, 2 times 500. Now remember, when you do that 9,000, you can go 0, 0, 0, 2 times 9 and write that down. Think about how many zeros there would be. This is partial products. Tens times tens, tens times ones, ones times tens, ones times ones, add those all up. Over here, problem 2, 2 packages to be mailed, 3 and 3/8, 4 and 2/8. What's the combined weight? That's just adding. You guys should be able to add those fractions. This one, this is step 1. This is step 2. This is step 3. Figure out what step 4 would be with that. And describe what you did, or what's happening each time. Over here, using the line plot to answer the questions, what is the difference between the tallest stack of dimes and the shortest? It's not which one is the tallest. Okay? That's actually the shortest stack of dimes. It's 2/8 of an inch. This is the tallest. Okay? So it's more so dealing with the 5/8 and the 2/8. That's probably hard to see because it's not very big, but it's more so dealing with the 5/8 and the 2/8, the measurements of that. Okay? And this one is just explaining how you did partial products multiplication. All right. I hope this went well for you, and we'll talk to you soon.